Okay, so I think we are ready to start the webinar. Welcome, my name is Christian and I'm sitting here together with Stella, my colleague, and I'm very happy to be on another webinar. This webinar will be entirely focused on barge operators, so let's kick off. Very shortly, first introduce ourselves. I'm Christian. I'm the co-founder and responsible for commercial, and I'm very happy to have Stella with me. Stella?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining this webinar. I'm Stella, and I'm responsible for the service delivery, so I'm your key contact in case of questions, problems, etc.
Okay, so the agenda for today is very simple. We will do a short introduction, then Stella will dive into the details, tell you everything how SCR can facilitate barge operators, and we will also host a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. So please hold on. If you have questions, feel free. We will use the chat, which is a button at the right-hand side, the bottom right of your screen, where you can type all the questions. We will take them one by one, so no worries. We will make sure all questions will be handled. So very quickly, we are T-Mining. We are a company of 12 people. We are based in Antwerp, and we have a lot of expertise both in software development, but also in the maritime industry, logistics industry. And so that's what we do. We make secure container release. It's an app that you all know, I think. We try to secure the container release process and, of course, the information flow, because we've seen that there is a lot of problems. You all know the news and the articles that appear on organized crime that tries to manipulate container flows. And so especially the PIN codes or the release references appear to be very fraud sensitive, and secure container release is a solution to the problem with PIN code fraud. And that's exactly our mission as a company, that we want to provide a more secure alternative to PIN codes. And that's exactly what we do with secure container release. We replace the PIN code by a blockchain-enabled token, a digital token that you can transfer from one party to another. So initially, the token is created by the ocean carrier. Today, it's used by MSC, CMA, and Hapag-Lloyd in the ports of Antwerp and Rotterdam. And the nice thing about that blockchain token is that you can transfer it in a much more secure way from one party to another. And in this webinar, we will especially focus on functionalities and the solutions we have developed for barge operators. Very quickly, a snapshot on who is connected on our network. Like I said, we are working for MSC, CMA, CGM, and Hapag-Lloyd in the port of Antwerp and Bruges. Also in Rotterdam, Hapag-Lloyd is using our technology to secure the container release process. We are a bit more than 3,500 companies that are using our solution as we speak, and they are representing in 25 different countries. Today, we also connected the MPET terminal here in the port of Antwerp. It means that they are connected in phase 3 of the rollout. I will explain in a minute what that means. And we also have a lot of other ports connected in phase 2. So what does that phased rollout mean? We are rolling out secure container release not in a big bang, but in a phased approach. We believe that that's the only feasible way to change a supply chain and to make it more secure without disrupting it, because of course containers need to be arrived in time at the port, and of course everyone has to be able to do his job properly. So that's why we go in phases. 3 years ago, we started rolling out secure container release in phase 1 together with NSC here in the port of Antwerp, and today we are in phase 2, and for MPET, the terminal, we are already in phase 3. So that's exactly where the status is today. So for truck, and we are in production since January this year on the MPET terminal. In Barge, for Barge, and we are currently testing, and also for rail, we will foresee a solution for the secure pickup. So that's very short how SCR works. We have also, of course, foreseen a demo. Stella, I learned that your PC crashed just before the webinar, so how is your PC doing?
It's still a black screen, thank you.
Okay, so maybe we can use the backup slides as a
Sure. So what is new in SCR? As Christian already mentioned, the secure pickup for barges is currently in test and will soon be made available in production because as from the 15th of January, the whole import process in the Port of Antwerp must be PIN code free. So that also includes the barge flows, which will also need to be working PIN code free. So SCR has developed the tool where also the barge operators will be able to work without PIN codes, and therefore your process in SCR will change a little bit. What is the idea that you do in SCR? Well, the idea is that for every container that you want to pick up at a container terminal, you will need to assign a barge in SCR. You need to make a link between the container in SCR and the barge that will pick up the terminal physically at the gate. So what is the first thing you will need to do in SCR? First, you will need to create your barges, to define the barges that you have. You can go to the barge menu, and that is the first step where you will need to define your barge. Only once, of course, once you have defined them with the name and the Europa number, you need to do it once, and then you can use it multiple times in the application. So this is the first step. You go to the barge menu, you select the creation of the barges, and you define all the barges that you have. Then the next step, I think it's, yeah. So here you see what you need to enter to create the barge. It's a very simple screen. You need to create the name and the AD number, and then this is done. The second step is then going to actually the releases overview. And in the releases overview, you will need to assign the barge to a container and multiple containers, multiple bills of lading, and therefore you can use the assign functionality. So in your releases overview or in your container overview, you can select the assign option, and then by clicking the assign button, you will be guided through your barges overview. And there you will see the barges that you have created. You can select the barge that will pick up that specific list of containers, and then you can add it to the containers in SCR. Now you will see that upon creation of the barges, you will need to define not only the name, but also the ANI number. And when linking a barge to a container in SCR, you see that you will also need to add the visit number, the PTS number of your visit at the terminal. Now, very often it is possible that at the time of the first assign of a barge, you do not yet have that visit number. No worries, you can add it afterwards anytime, but at least before picking up the container, all those details need to be completed in SCR. Now, once you have assigned a barge to a container, you can, of course, change it to another barge. You can unassign it. Or if, for example, a container that was planned to go by barge and eventually still needs to go by truck, you can easily unassign the barge from the container and then transfer that release to a trucking company, for example. So this is all question of a few clicks in the SCR. It's quite self-explanatory how it works. So actually there are two steps: creating your barges and then assigning them to the containers. There is also a report available in which you can see how successful your assigns are. That might be useful for evaluation afterwards, but the day-to-day process is actually simply assigning barges to containers. And there you will see in the release overview, when you have selected one container in this case, you will see that it has been assigned to a specific barge. And you will also see that the visit number has been included in this case. So this is basically what you need to do in SCR. Now we have some questions already about how will it work, what we will we need to do once the PIN-code-free process for Barges is operational. So we have listed a few questions here. For sure you will have many more questions. Please write them down in the chat and we will go through them in a minute. But to start off with the questions that we see popping up regularly, the first one is one that will happen quite often probably. What if I have containers on my barge that are released via SCR and other containers on my barge that are not released via SCR? Well, for you, this will not make a big difference because the terminal will take care. You will send in your Copino, you will specify the name of the code or the name of the carrier, and then the terminal will take care, and the terminal will decide and will know which containers they need to check via SCR and which containers they will need to check via CPU. Then the second question that we see, well, as you know, terminals have the option to either check the match between the container and the barge operator in SCR, or they can do it via CPU. So each terminal decides on how they will do the check. Of course, the carrier decides to start using SCR to release the containers, but eventually in the pickup process, it is the terminal that will decide whether they will check with SCR or with CPU. Now, how do you know that? Well, you will see that very clearly marked in the release overview in SCR. You will see there a column mentioning pickup by, and there you will see whether it's picked up by Nextport or by SCR. But for you, the procedure in SCR is exactly the same. You do not really have to worry about how the terminal will eventually check whether there is a match. You will only need to assign in the same way in SCR, and then the terminal will follow his procedures. And then, as mentioned, upon creation and assigning a barge, you will also see that there is a visit number and an ID required. Well, the visit number, there you will need to specify the PTS number once you have it. As mentioned, you can do it in the first step, or you can do it afterwards. And then the ID number is the identification of the barge itself, and there you will need to specify the Europa number, the AE number. And as a note, actually, you can always follow the logic of your Copino, and if you send the Copino with those details, they should be identical in SCR. So this is the basic guideline, let's say. And in case you have combined barges, you can use the AE number of the principal barge, let's say. So this is what we see as most common questions at the moment. Now, another question that we do get, of course, is how much will it all cost? Of course, as you know, you will have the option to use our SCR web app, but since barge operators often handle larger volumes in one go, we also have specific API offering for integration with your own planning tools, with your own system. There you can integrate with SCR API for your convenience. And then we have two types of pricing at the moment. We have two types because there are two types of organizations. There is the type of multi-entity enterprises, the bigger companies with lots of entities active in different branches. So therefore, we have a monthly subscription. And if you're a smaller operator, let's say, then we have a pay-as-you-go formula where you will pay a fee per container. And I think for most of you, the fee per container will be the most interesting one. The fixed fee of 919 euro per month is for the larger companies. They pay a fixed amount. So if you handle more than 1,000 containers a month, this is your formula. It's also available for multiple entities, and all our rates are always performed. Now, if you handle the smaller quantities, you will pay €1 per container that you handle in SCR. So €1 per container with a minimum of 250 euro on a monthly basis. So this is for one entity, one port. And if you do not have the infrastructure in place, we can also host this for you. So you do not need to worry about your infrastructure. If you have the €1 per container subscription, we can do the hosting on your behalf. So this is a little bit about our pricing. I think we have a few things that you should remember. As mentioned, we are currently in phase 3 in the secure pickup phase, already in production for truck for MSC containers at embed for many months. Barge and rail are currently in testing. And as a summary, well, of course, it starts with the carrier. The carrier chooses whether they release via SCR or via CPU. Carriers using SCR are MSC, CMA, and HAPAC. They release via SCR. And then the terminal, again, chooses whether they want to use SCR or CPU. And no matter how the terminal checks, your job in SCR is simply to assign the barges and do not worry about how the terminal will check. You will see it clearly marked, but the assign functionality is identical in SCR. So this is, I think, the most, I think we have covered most topics. I see that there are some questions coming in. I guess we can go through them one by one.
Yeah, sure. I think this guy had it's not a recap of the previous webinar. It's clearly a webinar on the barges. So yes, there is new information. Then a question from Mariam.
Yeah, the question from Mariam looks like a technical issue. Of course, I cannot tell this straight away what in your case could be the problem. Say for Dave, you say that you cannot send or accept invitations. Therefore, we have our support team at your disposal. There we should be able to find out where the cause is, because in general, this works very well with many companies. And then again from Mariam, you can have some info on how to solve the issue with the system. Yeah, please contact our support team, of course. Then Niska, this is a terrible solution to assign barges, assign company, not barges. Yeah, of course, this is always a trade-off between operational easiness, let's say, and security. Of course, we know that it can increase your workload, of course, to assign all the barges. But security is very important, that we have a secure container release system, of course, and therefore the assignment of a barge is mandatory. Then a question from Dave, will SCR be integrated with the port community system port base in Rotterdam? Yes, this is also in test. This is not really the subject of this meeting, but we can say, yes, we are currently analyzing and testing integration with port base. Let me see, Virginia, does this mean that it's not possible anymore that intermodal does a reservation for us? I do not know exactly your question or your situation between you, Virginia, and intermodal. But if you have details, also please send it to support, and I will have a look for you. Then a question from Dave, is this only applicable for Antwerp or also Rotterdam? We have a question. To start off, this is only applicable in Antwerp due to the port regulation in Antwerp, making it mandatory to work PIN code free, so starting in Antwerp and not yet in Rotterdam. Tim Visser, if you use the API, do you still need to do all these steps, or we can just work in your own system? Yes, of course, that's the idea actually of using the API, that you do not need to do all those steps, that you can simply do your job in your own system as you are used to, and then at the back end, all is transmitted to SCR as it should. And then the next part of your question, Tim, and as well, if we take the membership of API fixed, Can we make use of it with different companies, as our groups have several companies? Yes, this is possible. This is actually the difference in our pricing. You have the monthly subscription for all your legal entities and 1 euro container per legal entity, per single legal entity. Then a question from Juliana. Can we change the transport mode from barge to truck? Yes, of course you can. Once you have assigned a barge in SCR, you can unassign it and then reassign it to a truck driver. Or if you don't own the trucks yourself, you can unassign the barge and then transfer the release to the trucking company where they can attach a driver. Then the question from Stan. Hello, Stan. What happens if a freight forwarder uses carrier haulage with shipping line for the barge, but the customs document is issued by the freight forwarder? I'm not sure what your exact question is, Stan. Maybe you can specify. Because we're not really involved in the customs process. Of course, we show the customs slides as we receive them from the port authorities, but maybe you can specify. Then Miriam says she does not get an answer. Yeah, of course, it can take a while, but our support team is always answering your questions, so I will have a look after the webinar for you, Miriam. Then a question from Sarah. How can we get sure that customs clearance has been done if the... Oh, I don't see the question. How can we be sure that customs clearance has been done if document is not created by us? Antwerp will load unfortunately without document also. Yeah, of course, SCR is not related to the customs clearance of a container. SCR is related to the commercial release, not to the customs release. However, we do show the green lights in SCR, the green lights also including the customs light, where you can see in SCR the information that we get from the authorities, where you can see whether a customs light is green or red, indicating whether or not the customs clearance has been completed. Then Neska says nobody uses a sign a barge, only SCR. Yes, indeed, that's fully correct. And that's also why we have a secure container release solution, because we want to add security to the import process by not only defining the organization, but also the barge itself, in order to make sure that definitely the containers are loaded on the correct barge. Then a question from Marek. No problems if barges are assigned to different companies. I think you are referring, Marek, to some kind of, can I call it vessel sharing, which is in theory no problem. Also there we could say, follow the logic of your Copinos. If you send in 2 Copinos from different companies, you can do the same in SCR. And then the second question from Marek. Manual input from BTS numbers via the web will cause human errors. Yes, indeed, that's definitely possible. When humans need to enter data, there is always a risk of errors. Now, eventually, we could look at an integration with the BTS platform, but that's not yet in the scope to start off with. And then I see Stan. I think you're referring to your earlier question. I'd like to specify, but not allowed to turn on mic. Yeah. Maybe we can have a chat after the webinar, Stan, and then we can answer your questions in more detail. Then a question from Nele. When can we start doing the assigned barge and on which terminals? Yeah, good question, Nele. It looks like you're ready to start off, which is nice. Currently it's in test, so we are testing actually at this moment between SCR and the NFET terminal. So this will most likely be the first ones to be able to test. And depending on the results of our testing, which are planned this week and next week, depending on those results, you could either already start using it in test yourself, or in production, but we'll keep you informed on the progress. Then a question from Tanya, based on which blockchain? I never heard of T-mining before. Hapag started their releases in Rotterdam. Yeah, of course. Maybe Christian, you can help a little bit?
Sure, yes. Yeah, it's quite normal that you never heard about T-mining because we are a startup. So we are using indeed blockchain technology. We are using Hyperledger Besu, but that's not really very informative. So yes, we are using new technology to make it more secure. And we're not only working for Hapag-Lloyd in Rotterdam, but we're also working for MSC, CMA, and Hapag-Lloyd in Antwerp. So yes, we are a new company. We are a startup, so that's why. Okay.
Yeah, I think Miriam has specified her question that she sent earlier. And indeed, there are two ways to have an account on SCR. Either you install a piece of software, our wallet, let's say, in your own network, on your own server, which is perfectly possible. Many companies do that. If you do not have the option for one reason or another, if you cannot install the software internally on your own server, then we have the option to host it on your behalf. We do the hosting and the monitoring and the updating, and that's why we charge a fee for that. So you always have two options: either you install it yourself, or you ask us to do the installation and the hosting. And you can change from the one system to the other at any time. Then the question from Daniel: what if a barge is for hire and changes companies on a regular basis, this week X, next week Y, then back and so on? Is there something like a barge owner? Currently, this is not specified in SCR in this sense, but maybe we should dive into this question a little bit more in detail. I will have a look after this webinar, and I will come back to you about that, Daniel. Then Thomas, when is it possible to add barges? I only have option to add drivers. Yes, that's correct. We will enable the add barges option once the testing has been completed and once the system is operational in production. Then another question from Marek about customs clearing. Status pre-locked is very much wanted by logistics for making up their planning. Why is this status not shown already? Yeah, we show the customs clearance statuses as we get the information from the customs, from the port authorities, from Nextport. So what is available, we show in SCR. What is not available, of course, we cannot show at this moment. Then a question from Angela. The example was assigning a barge to one container, but I'm assuming it's possible to assign 100 containers to one barge and not only one by one. Yes, of course. Therefore, we have the container view option where you simply have a list of containers where you can select 100 containers and assign them in one go to one barge. And then a question from Neska. I think we would all like to know that answer on Daniel's question. Yeah, we will come back to that one, of course. Question from Hugues. Is the assigned, unassigned counted as a new container entry, meaning that each assigned, unassigned costs €1? No, the €1 per container formula is literally per container bill of lading combination. No matter how many times you assign, unassign, transfer, whatever you do with that release, you only pay once that €1 per container. I see that we have gone through the list of questions. Oh, there are another one coming in. Question from Tanya. So we as a freight forwarder, not a barge operator, only have to transfer to the party who's handling our transportation from Antwerp to any destination per barge. Yes, this is fully correct. This is indeed what you will need to do. You can already do that now if you like. You simply need to transfer your releases to the barge operator. Indeed. And then the question from Niska, are you going to make the deadline for barges 15th of January is close? Yes, we are well aware of this deadline. Of course, we are aiming to have it ready in tests by the 15th of December. But of course, let's wait and see how the testing goes and what comes out. But normally the planning is to have it ready 1 month before the actual deadline. Then a question from Alessandro. In your premium package, you add the option to host or token wallet. How is this still blockchain? Yeah, this is quite a technical question. I'm more from the functional side. Maybe Christian, you can...
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's correct. So the blockchain supposes a decentralized application. Of course, that for that you need your own server, and we are well aware that not for everyone this is a feasible solution to host such a piece of software themselves. So yes, you're correct. We try to push that as much as possible, and that's also why we make it free of charge. So you can host your own identity wallet free of charge. But of course, we have to be realistic, and not everyone is able or interested or capable in installing it themselves. So we try to be as decentralized as possible. Of course, we also need to be pragmatic.
Then the following question comes from Marek. BTS number is not obliged in CPU, which makes it a lot easier. Yes, of course, I think you're fully right, Marek, that it makes it easier, but not necessarily more secure. And that is why we, with our application, focus more on security in the import release process. So this is our focus, and that's why we have included the BTS number in our application. Then the question from Daniel, will there be a transition period? Is your support 24/7 in general? What will you do to smoothen the transition? Yeah, at this moment, we follow, of course, the deadline that is put there by the port authorities. We can not otherwise than follow the regulations. So as we see it now, there will be no real transition period. But our support team will be available during business hours, and we will keep you informed through webinars, through emails, etc. The 24/7 support is not available in SCR, but you can have your regular contacts at the terminal in case of issues, most probably. Then a remark from Niska, the BTS number will not make it secure. Really sorry, but it won't. Yeah, we are quite convinced that eventually it will be quite important to know which container will be loaded exactly on which barge, and not simply on a group of barge. Just and exactly know on which voyage the barge will land at the terminal. So therefore, we did foresee the inclusion of the BTS number in the application.
Okay, I think we are coming at the end of the Q&A. If there are no more questions, we have some housekeeping. So there is an announcement. So next week, Tuesday, there will be another webinar planned. We will shortly provide you with an email invitation so you can subscribe to that. And because we have already mentioned it during the webinar, there are quite some questions about the upcoming deadline of the 15th of January, which is coming quite close. And we are well aware that there are a lot of questions amongst a lot of people, and also concerns about the feasibility of that deadline. So we try to provide as much information as possible, and to guide you through all the information that is available right at the moment. So we will make another webinar next Tuesday to keep you informed about that. And secondly, there is also a question being asked on the registration on CPoint, so you can link your SCR account to CPoint. It's a mandatory thing. It's also explained on the website of Nextport, and we also included the link into these slides. You will also receive a copy of these slides later today. So here we also provide the information on how to link your SCR account with CPoint, which is a mandatory thing to do. Voila, that's about it. Yes, sir, we are looking at Portbase. To my opinion, they don't really have a working solution yet, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm happy to learn more, Roland, about the solution that Portbase proposes. But as far as I know, okay, it's operational. Yeah, you can send me, if you can send us the details, we are happy to have a look at it.
ID is always welcome.
Okay, that concludes the webinar. So Stella, thanks again for answering all the questions. Thank you for attending the webinar. It was a pleasure having you all. If you still have other questions, if you have technical questions, if you need support, please visit our website and go to support, and there is a whole landing page with all the information you can use. So with that, we want to thank you and say goodbye, and see you on the next webinar.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.